Well, hello, future self slash anyone else who actually watches these. Hi, welcome back. It's me again. To answer your question, yes, I am exclusively wearing oversized flannel button downs these days. So, yeah, you will be seeing these a lot. Yes, I am occasionally changing my clothes. Yes, I am making sure I wash these, but I only have like two, so they're just in constant rotation. You're welcome for that amazing fashion advice. To answer your second question, yes, I do still feel absolutely terrible. Thank you so much for asking that question. I know you were concerned. I know you probably had bets going, so I hope you won. This is an exciting update. I have a surgery date, and 1 month from today, I will be getting cut open. Thanks be to the gods, finally. Long story short, I did a lot of talking with friends and with my therapist about the doctor's appointment that I had with the new doctor, the new surgeon, from one of my most recent videos. And I have kind of come to the conclusion that I may never find the perfect doctor. And that kind of has to be okay if I want to get anything done. So, I do think that there is a line, of course, a standard of like whether or not you truly trust that someone's going to work hard for you or do a good job for you when you are paying for them for paying them for a service, especially a service like cutting open your body and potentially taking out terrible disease. So, if I, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable with him in the next few times we interact leading up to this surgery date, I will, of course, stop everything and cancel, and kind of go back to the drawing board at square one. But for right now, he may not have the most warm bedside manner, but he is the first doctor in a long time who has been willing to, like, get shit done and get it done quickly. I've only met with him once, and I already have a surgery date. So, this is very exciting. I have an MRI that's happening next week of my entire abdomen. So, they're doing a pelvic MRI and then a full abdominal MRI. Both of those are going to be with and without contrast. So, it's almost like I'm doing like four things back to back to back. I will then be meeting with him to discuss what has been what has shown up on that imaging. Hopefully that will give us some clear answers for what he can expect at my surgery. And yeah, so I've got about 2 weeks before I will be putting myself into a very strict quarantine so that I have absolutely zero chance of fucking up my surgery date because I will have to get a COVID test prior to going under. So I want to make sure that there is absolutely nothing that is going to jeopardize that in any way. In just a second, this clip is going to transition into a clip that I filmed earlier this week where I am wearing the other plaid shirt that I own. So proof that I do have more than one. You're welcome. I filmed that video earlier this week talking about my fears surrounding this upcoming surgery, because I do have a few. Getting surgery during the time of a global pandemic is kind of not an easy or comfortable thing. So there are a few things that I'm kind of nervous about. So I go into depth on that in this next clip. My phone has been doing some interesting things where it has been not saving files recently. So hence this glorious separate intro for you. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thanks for coming along on this very horrible, weird, but hopefully silver lining journey. Yeah, sure. Thanks, and transition to Emma from the past in 5, 4, 3, 2, I'm nervous about surgery. I have had surgery before, so I know what to expect, generally speaking, but I have never had surgery during a global pandemic before. And there are some things about that that make me nervous. For instance, no one can come with me. My partner will get up very early and drive me to the hospital, drop me off at the front door, and then go back home. I will walk in with my mask in whatever super comfortable clothing outfit I've chosen for the day so that after surgery I have the least amount of pressure from my clothing bearing down on my freshly cut open abdomen. And I will shuffle in, probably in slippers, and someone will point me to where I'm supposed to go. They will probably have me change into a delightfully fashionable hospital gown. They will probably put me in a bed, in a corner somewhere, behind a curtain, and leave me there until it's time for me to go to the OR. So typically, for at least surgeries like this, you're supposed to get there 2 hours before your surgery time. So I will have a lot of time to kill by myself. And that makes me nervous. It's not so much the being by myself part. I'll bring a book, I'll have my phone, I will probably do something to fill that time. But what I'm nervous about is that there's nobody that's going to be hanging out in the room with my stuff while they wheel me off. And just in the event that something bad happens, there's no one for them to consult in person. They will be calling my partner, who will hopefully not have gone back to sleep, and who will hopefully answer the phone in case they need to reach him for any reason. And then when surgery's over and they wheel me into a recovery area until I can wake up and kind of be functional, there's not going to be anybody sitting next to me waiting for me to wake up and making sure that I'm okay and ready with a cup of water. And the thing that really makes me nervous, there's not going to be anybody there to make sure that if the doctor comes to say, hey, this is how it went, here's what we found, here's what we did, I'm not going to have a second pair of ears to make sure that I hear that information correctly. I will be in pain. I will have just woken up from anesthesia. I will probably have all manner of meds in my system to help control the pain, which means I'm going to be loopy as all fuck. And I am really nervous about how that conversation is supposed to go. It also depends on whether or not the doctor has another surgery immediately after. It's very possible that I will not have anyone be able to tell me anything about how my surgery went on the day after it happens, and I don't feel good about that. In the past, when I've had procedures like this, usually I have come to while the doctor has been in the room talking to whoever my people are that were there with me, whether it was my parents or, well, really up until this point it was always just my parents. And that makes me really nervous. So one of the questions that I'm going to ask at this pre-op appointment is, hey, how long are you keeping me? Like, are you going to keep me long enough that I can be fully woken up before you discharge me to go home after the surgery, so that someone can come and tell me how it went? Someone can come and say, like, oh my god, we opened you up and turns out everything inside of you is made of glitter, and that's been the problem all along, so we vacuumed it all up and I think you're good to go. The thing about this surgery is that it's kind of exploratory. This doctor doesn't know exactly what he's going to find. Hopefully the MRI will give us some clues as to some of that, but the thing about endo is that it doesn't show up on scans, and it doesn't always make itself known in a very clear way. So he could open me up and it could be everywhere. It could have fused all of my organs together and I could just be an absolute mess, and maybe he now needs to get a few other specialty surgeons in there to help kind of take everything apart and cut the disease out and sort of put me back together. Or he might not be able to find a whole lot of lesions at all, but the ones he does find, maybe there's something really distinct or strange about them that involves a different way of being able to remove them, or involves complications, or maybe he opens me up and everything is purple. I don't know. Part of the part of this, the whole thing is that it's going to be a little bit of a we won't know until we get there situation. So I just would really like to be awake and cognizant and functioning for the "so this is what happened" conversation. So I'm nervous about that. I'm sure that they have figured it out, right? The pandemic's been going since March, so I'm sure that other patients who have had other surgeries, possibly even more invasive and intense than mine, they have figured out a way to make sure that they can be fully informed about what went down while they were unconscious. So it just makes me nervous. I'm not used to it. I like being able to have that other person there, being able to see them when I wake up and know that I'm okay, and have that reassurance, and know that just in case I was really loopy, another set of ears heard what the doctor said, and my partner can't come in at all. When it's time for me to be discharged, someone will wheel me out to the parking lot for him to get me. So it's just going to be a weird, stressful day, but there are a lot of people who definitely have had much worse situations and who've had to stay in the hospital for much longer than a single day outpatient procedure. And just thinking about how that must feel is horrific. So I will be grateful that I can be dropped off and then picked up. Something I haven't gone into too much detail yet is the general level of anxiety that I live with on a pretty daily basis as well. One of the things that complicates my invisible illness roster is that I have PTSD, which stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, and complex post-traumatic stress disorder, also known as CPTSD. And you can have both and they can be layered on top of each other, and it's not the cutest thing. But I will talk more about those in depth at a different time. But essentially, I have a stress disorder. I get incredibly anxious and incredibly hypervigilant at times, and I am searching for the solutions to every possible problem I can foresee, which is why thinking about, waking up after the surgery is such a big deal at this moment. I'm trying to imagine how the day is going to go so I can try to plan it out and be prepared for it, and that is a very anxious making and nervous making mental activity, and that's why we're in therapy, kids. We are trying to work on these things so that I do not run myself into the ground. I often experience burnout, mostly just because I am trying to do too much all at once, and I am also stressing about all the things I'm trying to do, and things that I'm not doing, and why I'm not doing those things, and whether or not I should be doing those things, and whether or not I'm doing too much, but also the feeling that I'm not doing enough, and so on. All of that to say, it makes me anxious, it makes me worried, I'm nervous, and so I will hopefully not have a huge anxiety attack upon being left alone in the hospital waiting for surgery to happen. I am trying to mentally prepare myself for that feeling of being by myself so that I don't have a full panic attack meltdown. Some people might think, oh, well, then the hospital is the perfect place to be if you're having a full panic meltdown, but that's not always the case for everyone, so hopefully I don't have to worry about it. And if I do, hopefully I will have compassionate nurses nearby who will be able to help me in a non-threatening, non-invasive way. The other thing about surgery that I am nervous for goes back to that whole exploratory element. There are only so many things we can plan for. One of the things that I talked about with this new doctor 2 weeks ago was that depending on what the MRI shows and depending on what he finds, we might be at the point where my uterus needs to go. And I think we're going to have all of those conversations before we get to surgery day about if he finds certain things, what I am consenting to let them do or not do. But I am kind of wondering if I wake up and maybe something absolutely crazy happened and they have to tell me that they had to take some things out that maybe we weren't necessarily thinking we would have to going in. So it is a little strange to think about maybe getting a hysterectomy in a month's time. Possible. I don't know yet. We're gonna see what the MRI says. We're gonna see what happens. I've been trying to get one since I was 20 anyway, so I mean, might as well now, right? So that's it for the moment for documenting my surgery fears. And I will see you later on this adventure. Cheers.